So Channel Mum are doing this amazing series called Why Did Nobody Tell Me? And I was thinking there's so many things I could have done this video on. I was thinking baby blues, because I got them really badly, breastfeeding problems, mum loneliness. But the one thing that always comes back to me that was the biggest shock for me after having my baby was, why did no one tell me how awful an assisted birth can be? I have actually taken part in another Channel Mum video with some other mums about why did no one tell me about broken vaginas, because my vagina essentially broke a little bit after my assisted birth. But I didn't go into detail about my assisted birth in that video, so I thought I would talk about it a bit more here. I'm not making this video to scare anyone. I know there's nothing worse than being pregnant and people telling you like gory, scary stories, and I don't want to do that. But equally, I think a level of reality can be a good thing sometimes. So keep watching if you want to know a bit more about what can really happen with an assisted birth. So an assisted birth is, well, it's when you need assistance. So ventouse, forceps, episiotomy. I think that's it. So my labour with Noah, he's just turned 2. It was going really well. I was having a water birth, no pain relief. I was very in control, doing all my breathing, and he essentially got stuck. I'll cut out all, I won't tell you all the details about what happened then because it's a long story and it is quite traumatic. Actually, I have done a video on that before, so I'll link that below as well. But essentially, his heart rate dropped really quickly because they gave me a massive hit of drugs to speed my contractions up, and I have since read that that's often what causes their heart rate to drop. So his heart rate dropped really quickly, and of course they were like, we need to get your baby out like now, which was terrifying. The red button was pressed, the room filled with people. It was my worst nightmare. This doctor came in and said, right, I'm gonna have to do a ventouse, and I was terrified because my mum had a ventouse with one of my brothers, and like he's nearly 30 and she still talks about it being the worst experience of her life. It's pretty much up there for me. So I had no gas and air or anything. They didn't do any kind of numbing. It was literally, and a ventouse is like a vacuum extractor. So I guess they have to get it inside you and up to the baby's head. For me, and I'm sure it's not the case for everyone, but for me, I felt like my whole body was being torn in two. And I think I screamed the place down. It was just awful. Now, when I tell the story now, I can tell it with humour because essentially I had this full-grown man, this big doctor, and he was a big bloke, down at my nether regions with some, vacuum thing attached to my baby's head inside my vagina. He was literally pulling like, trying to get my stuck baby out. And he wasn't coming. I don't know what Noah was doing in there. Apparently he had his hand up like that and was all squished. Naughty boy. But yeah, he couldn't get Noah out. I've never actually heard of anyone having a failed ventouse. I don't know. Let me know if it happened to you. It didn't work. So there's this man dragging on my bits, which doesn't have a great effect on them. So he then said, this isn't working, I need to do episiotomy and forceps. By this point, I was just hysterical and terrified. The episiotomy, because I went and did antenatal classes, and all of this stuff was kind of mentioned. You may have to have an episiotomy, a ventouse, forceps, but no one tells you what's really involved, which is why I'm doing this video. The episiotomy, I did get given a local anaesthetic. So actually, that was the least of my worries. All through my pregnancy, I was terrified of episiotomy, but if you have to have one, they numb you. So honestly, like, it's not as bad as you imagine. And I guess I'd rather be cut than have some awful tear. So he cut me, and then out came the forceps, which looked like a pair of salad servers. And actually, Noah came out, I think then, with like 3 pulls. So the forceps weren't as bad at all for me as the ventouse. It was the ventouse that really did me in. But I kind of wanted to do this video to talk about both the after effects physically and emotionally from an assisted birth. I'll talk about emotionally first. So emotionally, I was fairly traumatised by the whole experience. I think a lot of it was my baby's heart rate dropping and, it becoming an emergency situation. I struggled to deal with that for months afterwards. And when Noah was a newborn, I used to go and have a shower, and I didn't want anyone to know how badly it was affecting me. So I'd go in the shower, and the minute I get in the shower, I would just cry for the whole length of the shower and just let out this stress that I was feeling and this anxiety that had been caused. I still feel a bit upset thinking about it now. The anxiety that had been caused by my birth experience. Physically as well, the midwife comes and sort of checks you if you've got stitches and stuff, like 2 days, 3 days after you've given birth. I remember going into the bedroom and stripping off, and the midwife looking at my stitches, and she said, oh, you know, your doctor did a really good job, these are really good stitches. But she said to me, you had a very deep episiotomy. Don't look in a mirror, just don't look in a mirror. So the minute she went, I got a mirror out, because I'm one of those people, I have to know what's going on. And I'm not even joking, my whole undercarriage, it looked like it had been in its own car crash. It was black and blue, completely bruised, and the side where the episiotomy had been, which is my right side, was so swollen, just like nothing you've ever seen before, and I was fairly horrified. But for me, it all started making sense why I couldn't sit down. I had this newborn who I couldn't latch, so I was having all these breastfeeding issues, and I think half the problem was I couldn't physically sit comfortably. And I got one of those ring cushions. Here's a little tip. And the midwife came around, she's like, don't use a ring cushion. Women think they should be using ring cushions when in fact they pull your stitches apart. Don't sit on a ring cushion. So don't sit on a ring cushion if you've just had stitches. It's an old wives' tale. Apparently it's really bad for you. But I think the main trauma from the assisted birth, and I think it was from the ventouse part of it, was the damage to my pelvic floor. I'm pleased to report it is fairly okay now, 2 years on. I didn't have to have any special medical treatment, which some of my friends did and is quite common, but it wasn't good for a long time. I felt like I had a prolapse, everything was dragging. And for me, I went and saw a doctor and she looked at me and she said, oh, it's okay, it's all just kind of going back, just do your pelvic floors. I did do my pelvic floors religiously, and since Channel Mum have been talking about this again, it's reminded me we should do them all the time, not just when you're pregnant or when you've just had a baby. Just as a woman, you should do them all the time. Yeah, that's kind of my assisted birth story. I wish someone had told me how bad it could be, just because I think as a new mum, you've got so much going on, you're trying to look after this new baby, you're getting no sleep, you're trying to feed, that is often really hard, and then your body feels like it's failing. And I kept thinking, I'm sure this isn't supposed to happen, like I'm literally broken, but it does happen. And I was fit and healthy, and I'd exercise, it was nothing to do with that. It was just the effect it had on me. So if it's happening to you, it does get better. You have my deepest sympathies. Sorry for rambling loads. Give me a thumbs up if you've liked this video, and leave me comments below. I'd love to know what you've been through or what you're worried about, and I will reply to all your comments. And if you haven't subscribed already, do subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.